A Hell's Angels noticed bruises on the face of single mom Waitress. What he did next shocked everyone. The rain had been falling since morning, thin as thread and just as endless. Out on Highway 47, a single neon sign blinked above the worn diner windows. Open. Inside, the place smelled of coffee, wet asphalt, and the faint sweetness of pie crust. Mara wiped the counter for the third time in a row. The cloth trembled slightly in her hand. Her lower lip was split, fading to the color of violets. She had learned to angle her face toward the light in ways that made people less likely to ask. The bell above the door jingled. Boots. Heavy ones. Then the low rumble of voices, men. Laughter edged with road dust and distance. The Hell's Angels. Their jackets carried years of wind and grit. Mara kept her eyes down. She'd seen trouble before, and had learned it usually started with someone looking too long. But the one who took the corner booth, Reed, didn't look like trouble. He looked like a man who'd already been through it and didn't care for more. His hair was long, streaked with road dust. His eyes were steady, warm in a way that made her uneasy. When she poured his coffee, she could feel his gaze pause on her face, just for a second, where the bruise faded into her jaw. He didn't ask, didn't pity her, just said softly, "Thanks, darling." 2 words, but they landed like something she hadn't heard in a long time. Gentleness. Mara worked the night shift because it paid an extra $1, and because her boy, Eli, could sleep in the back room. The old cook, Tom, let her bring a blanket and a thermos of milk. The boy was 6, small for his age, but sharp-eyed. He never cried, even when the thunder rattled the windows. Outside, rain clung to chrome. The bikers laughed quietly, respectful of the quiet. Reed didn't join in much. He kept his gaze on the window, where a truck idled in the parking lot. Inside it sat a man, Rick. Mara's hand shook when she saw the headlights. She tried to act like she hadn't. Rick was her ex, though the town still called him her man. He came around only to yell or take what little she had. When she brought the check, Reed's eyes flicked to the window again. "That your ride?" he asked. She hesitated. "Just someone I know." He nodded slowly, the kind of nod that didn't need the truth to understand it. When Rick came inside a few minutes later, the air shifted. His boots clattered across the tiles, his voice too loud for the space. "You think I'm paying for your hours again? You got enough charity already." Before Mara could answer, Reed stood up. He didn't raise his voice. "Sit down, friend. You're embarrassing yourself." Rick turned, sneering. "And who the hell are you?" Reed's jacket caught the light, the wings, the red patch. Recognition flashed in Rick's eyes. The words died in his throat. He spat on the floor, muttered something, and stormed back out into the rain. Mara's breath came slow and uneven. "You shouldn't have." Reed cut in gently. "Someone should have a long time ago." The next week, the bikers kept coming back. Not all at once. Sometimes just Reed. Sometimes 1 or 2 of his men. They didn't cause trouble. They ordered pie, left tips that felt too kind, and treated her like she wasn't invisible. Eli started coming out front more, drawn by the sound of engines. He was quiet at first, watching from behind the booth. One day, Reed crouched down beside him, holding up a wrench from his toolkit. "You ever seen how a throttle works?" Eli shook his head, wide-eyed. Reed showed him, patient and gentle, the smell of oil mixing with the sweetness of pancake syrup. Mara watched from the window, the ghost of a smile tugging at her lips. For the first time in months, the diner didn't feel like a cage. That night, when she left for home, Reed noticed Rick's truck again, parked just far enough away to pretend coincidence. He followed at a distance, the rain soft but steady. When Rick grabbed Mara's wrist outside her car, Reed was there before the second word. "You what?" he said quietly. Rick froze, his hand still midair. Reed didn't move closer. He didn't have to. The weight of his calm was enough. Rick stepped back, muttering, and drove off into the dark. Mara stood shaking, clutching her keys. "You can't keep doing this." "Maybe not," he said, "but you can't keep talking it either." A storm rolled through the valley a few days later, the kind that turned dirt roads into rivers. Mara still showed up for work. The diner was nearly empty, the power flickering. Reed came and soaked through, water dripping from his hair. "Told you I'd check in," he said with a half-smile. "You planning to order or rescue?" She teased weakly. "Bit of both, maybe." When the lights went out, Reed found a box of candles in the supply closet. He helped her light them one by one, the soft glow warming the chrome and tile. Eli stirred in the back, rubbing his eyes. Reed poured him a cup of cocoa, stirring it with the handle of a spoon. For a while, the three of them sat at the booth by the window, rain streaking the glass. Eli told Reed he wanted a red motorcycle someday. Reed chuckled. "You'll need longer legs first." Mara laughed softly, the sound surprising even her. Before leaving, Reed took a folded envelope from his pocket. "My sister wrote this to me years back," he said. "Found it when I didn't expect to. Maybe it's time someone else has it." She opened it after he left. Inside was a single line in fading ink. "Sometimes help doesn't look like rescue. It looks like someone staying when the world runs out." She sat there for a long time, tears falling soundlessly. The next evening, Rick returned. The storm had left puddles shining under the streetlights. He smelled like whiskey and anger. "Thought you could hide behind your biker friends?" he slurred, grabbing her arm. Eli screamed from the back. The door banged open. Reed was there. No patch tonight, just jeans, boots, and a stare that cut through the noise. "You just ran out of chances," he said. Rick swung. Reed sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and twisted. It wasn't showy, just efficient. A lifetime of knowing when enough was enough. Within seconds, Rick was on the ground, cursing as sirens began to wail in the distance. Reed's men were outside, waiting. They'd called the sheriff before coming in. When Rick was hauled out, Mara stood trembling, her hands over her mouth. "Why do you care?" she whispered. Reed wiped a streak of blood from his jaw. "Because I seen what happens when no one does." He turned to leave, but Eli ran to him, throwing his arms around his leg. "Don't go." Reed knelt, his hand resting on the boy's shoulder. "I'll be around." Morning came slow. The rain was gone, leaving the world smelling of earth and new beginnings. Sunlight spilled across the diner floor. Reed showed up again, no jacket, just himself. He slid into a booth, gave Mara a small nod. "Coffee's on me this time." She smiled, really smiled, the kind that reached her eyes. "You're full of surprises." "So are you," he said, looking at her bruises, fading now, nearly gone. "You don't scare me anymore," she said quietly. "Wasn't trying to." Outside, Eli's laughter rang out. He was sitting on Reed's motorcycle, pretending to ride, his small hands gripping the handlebars. Mara stepped closer. "You leaving soon?" "Maybe," he said. "Road never runs out." "But you'll come back?" Reed's gaze softened. "Wouldn't be much of a goodbye if I didn't." She reached out, brushed her fingers lightly over his hand, just a touch, just enough to mean something. The moment hung between them, quiet and certain. That afternoon, after he rode off, she found a note tucked under the register. It was written in his rough handwriting. No one should have to walk home alone in the dark. Not anymore. Mara folded it carefully, placed it beside the old letter from his sister. 2 lives, 2 reminders. When she looked out the window, a highway shimmered in the sun. The world didn't look so big anymore. Eli was drawing in his notebook, a picture of a motorcycle, red and shining. She smiled, brushed a hand over his hair, and whispered, "He'll be back." And in that small-town diner, where the coffee was always warm and the nights used to feel too long, something changed. The hum of the jukebox, the scent of sugar and rain, the memory of a man who saw her, not as broken, but as brave. That evening, as the sky turned gold, Mara stepped outside, the sound of engines faint in the distance. The wind lifted her hair, and for the first time in years, she didn't flinch from the light. Somewhere down the road, a bike roared once, like a promise. In a world where too many look away, sometimes kindness wears leather and rides a long road home. If this story touched you, share it, subscribe, and remember, courage often starts with someone simply noticing.